and we're going to go up here into template applicator. The template applicator is where we actually apply the files that I've created beforehand. So it's going to be things like injector data. I've went in and I've entered all the injector data in, and I extracted that data out into a file. Now we're going to take that file and import it into our existing calibration file. So again, a way that we can quickly populate data. If you're used to working with SCT for doing any kind of forward tuning, you'll know this similar idea. It's called a value file in SCT software. It's a similar idea to that, but again, just a quick way we can get things populated into our calibration file without copying and pasting from another calibration file or manually entering in the data. Now we do have our Excel spreadsheet from our training course, and I did include a lot of this data in there so we can take a look. We go back and through here, we can find all these different tabs. So things like our throttle body data is here, things like our mass airflow, different MAF curves that we can copy and paste. So we can get the data from here, but why copy and paste it? Why create more work? Let's just do a plug and chug here and create this base map as quick as we possibly can. Then we're gonna go through, once I apply all the template applicator files, we're gonna go through and talk about what actually has been changed and why before we actually go ahead and save this file and then upload it and flash it to the engine control module. We're just going to pick apart what we're changing. Now, the template applicator is only going to bring in certain data. Some things we need to modify and edit by hand. So for example, something like our idle control, we need to go and actually deal with that by hand. It's kind of on a case-by-case basis. So let's go in here and take a look. So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to go to File, Open. I'm going to go to Open Tune Template. Then we're going to be looking for our course, our training course here. So our training course folder. And in the folder, you'll have to re-download this if you haven't already downloaded already and you're not seeing this present, our template applicator subfolder. In here, we need to go and take a look at, let's say, talk about our injectors first. What injectors do we have here? We need to enter in that data. We need to make sure it's populated right. So in here, we can take a look. We have a whole bunch of different options. There's DW injectors for returnless system. There's FIC for a return system and returnless. Ford Racing injector data. We go down here a little bit, there's ID injector data. Now this particular car has ID 1300s. What's to note about this is that it has a return style fuel system, and the base fuel pressure is set to about 3 bar, 300 kPa, or equivalent of about 43 to 44 PSI of base fuel pressure. Base fuel pressure is when the engine is running. We pull the vacuum line off the fuel pressure regulator. That's the actual true base pressure, or where it's going to reference atmospheric pressure. So it's all been preset already. So I know that's all good to go. I verified and checked it myself. So we need to go and use the data that's going to be equivalent of 300 kPa as the base point, and it's going to be a return style fuel system. You have a returnless system, then you'll have to look up the data for that. In my case, I'm going to go here to injector data, return 43.5 PSI. And we see all of our different data sets that we can work with here. These are new ID 1300 X2 injectors. So this is the data that we're going to be bringing in here. Click open, and it's going to show me everything that it's going to be changing. So it's scaling our low and high slope, our breakpoint multipliers, minimum pulse width, rail temperatures, offsets, inferred rail pressures, high and low. What we're going to do here is apply this, and we can see things like our inferred rail pressure and low speed inferred rail pressure. Those aren't used in this calibration file. So this file is something I've created to work with Gen 2, Gen 1, Gen 3 Coyotes when we're bringing in injector data. So some of the data tables, some of the actual raw tables that are there aren't used in the GT500 in this particular older generation. So no big deal. We're going to just skip adding those in there, but it has applied these other changes. It showed that everything else in here has been applied. And if we actually take a look and we jump into our actual file here, go into engine, and we go into fuel, we're going to see anything highlighted in red are things that have been updated and changed. So in this case, it's actually went in here and changed all of this data for ID 1300 cc injectors specific for a return style fuel system. So we're going to go through and just pick apart some of this, talk about a little bit more detail as we go through. After we've applied all the template applicator files I have that are going to be working with this car, we'll go and talk about what's been changed and some of the details there. So I just wanted to point out how this is going to work. This is probably the first time you're seeing using a template applicator file. Very, very basic, but very, very powerful. And I went through and spent hours and hours and hours creating those template applicator files, which will save you a lot of time. So definitely use them. Definitely re-download the course packet. If you already had to download it once, download it again, because it'll have that in there. And again, I'm trying to update things and keep things current with our mod motor training course. Okay, so let's jump back in here. We're gonna go to edit. We're gonna go back to template applicator. Let's look at a couple more things we wanna bring in terms of our data. Let's go back into our template applicator folder. We're gonna go here. There's a fuel pump return. So if you have a return style system, so we have a return line installed, and we need to go in here and grab this return fuel system. What this is going to do is essentially set the fuel pump control module to not go in and try to modulate the voltage to the pump assemblies to try to vary and reach a target pressure. It's going to essentially bypass all of that, allowing us to run the double pumper here without the fuel pump control module trying to control things. So we're allowing the external regulator to go in and essentially do the control mechanically rather than having electronically controlled, because we have this return line in here. So this will allow us to compensate for that and account for that in the calibration programming. And we'll click open here, and we're going to go and apply those changes. These are all changes that need to be made. We see nothing has been skipped. That all brought the data into our calibration file here. So let's go ahead and close it. Now I like to close the template applicator file and reopen it. It does take a little bit more time doing that. I've noticed some quirkiness if you try to constantly load new files on top of each other rather than closing it out. Sometimes it does some quirky things. So I like to go ahead and just close it, open it. Does take a little bit more time, but that's okay. Let's go back in here to the template applicator and open up another file. So that was for the injectors we've accounted for, and then we've accounted for the fact that we have a return style system. So that's all been programmed. So let's see what else we have here. Looking down our list, our throttle body data, very important. Now, this has twin 67 mil throttle bodies. So I don't have data, and there might be data out there, but I don't have the exact data for the 67 mil. But I do have data from the Super Cobra Jet. That's a twin 65 millimeter. There is a slight difference between the 65 and 67 millimeter. This throttle body data should get us about 99% close. It should be very, very close, and we might have to tweak or change it. We'll see once we kind of get things going in the calibration process, but this is about the closest I can get. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option right here and click open. And it's going to be changing the predicted and effective area tables. Those are going to be essentially rescaled and renormalized to account for the larger throttle body assembly that we have fitted to the engine, so that it's going to know what to do and how to control our drive-by-wire system in relation to our torque control and to the airflow. So we've talked about all that in our main training course. Let's go ahead and apply those changes. We can see everything here has been imported for those two tables. All right, let's go back in here. Let's go edit into template applicator, and let's jump into file open and do this again. And looks like the last folder that I have in here is going to be our intake math calibrations. Now in here we have a bunch of different options. What I'm going to do here is go and grab my JLT 123mm GT500 intake. This is going to be something I pulled from another GT500. So I actually pulled this math calibration curve that I've populated and figured out, tuning that car out. I'm going to bring it in here as a starting point. If you have this intake, this will be a plug and chug for you. You can simply select it, or if you have other intakes, we can select those here as well. If you don't have an intake here that's listed, all you have to do is measure your stock area on your intake, and then you need to measure the new area, so the inner diameter of your new intake. You can put that in here, and it'll allow us to essentially recalibrate. If we put the stock curve here, the curve here in the blue is the recalculated amount, accounting mathematically for the difference between our two mass airflow diameters, or essentially the inner pipe diameter where the mass airflow sensor is residing. It'll account for that in the curve here, and that'll be a really good starting point. Now, this will give you even better start.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.